Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Telling you guys a bit of a tutorial video slash pitching video really on a product from Outwell. So what I'm going to do is put one of Outwell's universal canopies or awnings onto one of their tents. So it's going to hopefully show you how easy it really is and show you how flexible the option is to put on as well. So now it's worth mentioning that actually pretty much nearly every single Outwell tent, be it poled or be it air, has this ability of adding an additional universal front awning onto it. Outwell have been very clever, to be honest with you, in how they've done it, and they've made it sized range across the whole collection, so you can pick and choose what you want. So you can always extend quite easily. It means that, for example, a tent like this, where it's only really 2 zones, suddenly becomes 3 zones, and an enclosed 3 zones at that, by adding it on. So first thing we're going to do is unravel it, find the poles, and then from here spread out the material. Now each Outwell tent will have its own universal awning size, so it's worth double checking that on what that is to make sure you buy the right one, and it's all spaced out. I think they go from about size 1 up to 7, so there's quite a number of them depending on how wide the tent is. So now we've got it it's fairly out, we're going to look for an open section, which is essentially just the roof fabric. So here we go. So we've got the roof fabric, and it's almost like an extendable bit of webbing strap. Now this is the part that's going to go directly over the top of the roof and then clip on. So as standard, pretty much all Outwell tents have an additional hook, that is located either directly behind the back pole, front pole, sorry, or a bit further back. Now what I'd recommend doing is extending this fully out as far as you possibly can, and then just merely clip that onto there as such. We're only going to do it a bit loose initially, just to get in position. So by taking it all the way fully out, you can do like that. And then we're going to take this fabric, now we've got it tied on one side, lift it up and take it directly over the roof of the tent. Again, just bringing the fabric quite nice and neatly towards it. If you've got any guy ropes, just make sure we take it out a little bit, just to give it a little bit more extra size. And then again, we'll clip that back as far as that point to make sure it clips onto the actual tent itself. Personally, I quite like to see that whole top point over the ridge. So by this I mean this flap here is suspended over that pole a little bit, so we'll just tension that back a little bit, but you can play as you go with it. Each universal canopy will fit each model a little bit differently. From this point here, we can just quite literally bring this out a little bit, just get ourselves nice and square. Now the length of it and how far you have it back over the tent and forward has a little play depending on each model. So this we can play with as we go. What I'm going to do initially is just peg it back on the floor, just to keep it a little bit neat and tidy, just for the second. So just gives me something to tension against on both sides. And what I might even do to a certain extent as well is just bring this forward a little bit as well, just so we've got a shape going on. Now often you'll find you may need to remove the front straps. So we're here, we can see our tension straps bringing the tent forward. You might have to undo those, you can't necessarily fit them inside the actual tent itself. Oh, I love it when it rains. So we're just going to do this initially, just to get ourselves set. And it will just almost pull the fabric out in a little bit for us, just to make sure we're all neat and tidy. So, from this point here, we've kind of got the fabric initially on it. Now we can actually use the additional pole. So it always comes with a pole in. Sometimes it's fiberglass, sometimes it's metal. Sometimes there's 2 poles depending on how long or it is. So with this, we've got 2 poles. So you have upright poles and then kind of poles that go across the roof section. So we've got 2 for each side. So we can put those over each side like so. And at this point now, I find it's easier to kind of feed the vertical pole directly through. They tend to be kind of a pre-angled shape to it as well. So you have to make sure when you're feeding it through, it follows the curvature of the roof. This is where you want to be careful not to snag the actual material as well, just so it all feeds smoothly through. Whereas second pair of hands is not a bad shout, just to kind of make sure you're not going to essentially penetrate the fabric at any point. But can be done on your own. Perfect, so we kind of fed that through initially. What I'm going to do is almost basically put the upright in the back and kind of work our way forward. And again, it's making sure that we're kind of either way with it. You'll find there is a ring and pin right at the bottom of here. Now, because the cross point's going across the actual front storm straps, because we've got a little bit of tension from the front, what I can actually do is just put one in one side, like so, just to weigh it down. I'm now going to go inside, take those front straps that bring the actual tent canopy forward. Just that way we have the webbing strap running along the base quite nice and neatly. Okay, so let's go through the front door, open it up a little bit. So, there you go. One peg done. Perfect. Depending on the design of the tent, would it take whether it's going to kind of pull back a little bit. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Gives you a little bit more play into getting that canopy sitting right on the actual roof of it. So we'll put our other pole directly in. Look at it the right way around. Perfect. So I'll feed that through. Pop it in the ring pin directly at the bottom. Making sure we've got enough fabric kind of on either side. So now we've got that point in, we'll clip the pole on, just make sure it's nice and secure. Often with the steel poles, they also have the kind of storm straps, we say. So we'll wrap that around it as well, just to make sure it's all properly on the actual extension. But you can see at the moment it's all kind of just approximate, and we can tweak it once it's physically up. So clips on, straps go round. Again, what that does is actually brings the pole directly to the fabric. It means when you tension the guide point itself, you're tensioning both the fabric and the actual poles as well, rather than kind of pulling the seam away. So from a longevity point of view, it works better, but also from a physical structural point of view, it's also a benefit as well. There's my guide points there. Someone's done a good job of that. There you go, missed the Velcro bit. Perfect. So the first pole's in. We'll do the next pole then, and then we can kind of play and tweak it a little bit. Thank you, Arch. So we'll feed that through, and then we'll do the same thing, put the vertical uprights in next. What I might just do is shut that door as well, just to kind of give it a little bit more support. to the front of that. So we're in a bit there. Just going to put that ringing pin in at the bottom. So we're secured on that one side, and it's going to allow me the tension again back against it. That's in, leg up, perfect. Bring that throw back a crack. And then in the ringing pin at the bottom. Thank you, Mr. Pegging Point, for giving way. So now in this position, what we can do is, again, really bring that through. What I'm going to probably do as well is we'll just grab an additional kind of pegging point, bring the middle section as a guide point directly in the middle, so when you're into wind, it's got to keep it taut and directly out. So I'll just approximately peg that out to hold it in place. From here we can kind of shift it forwards and backwards depending on how we want to do it. Ideally you want to kind of get it sort of lined up dead straight with the actual tent, and you want a good sort of overlap coming from this point here. So that's where again you can kind of pick and choose how far it comes out or not, and tension it not only at the top but also across the sort of towards the front as well. So let's just clip those on. You see from a front point of view it's looking quite sharp at the moment. Sounds like a good go with those ratchet. Okay, there we go. So at this point here, what I'd recommend doing is we'll just kind of guide this point out. On a windy day where you're not sure what's going on, it's always better to probably have a few extra guide points out. Again, initially, I'm going to peg this directly forward, just bringing it kind of forward from where the wind is kind of blowing at the moment. Now we want to make sure that's dead straight. We can see obviously the actual webbing strap here is a little bit baggy, so what I can do is physically prop that directly up. You have got a point you can peg through on where the ring and pins are, and that will really help you to get your distance, but also allow you to peg away from each point. Or find that you can peg directly through the eyelet itself. So we're on here. Again, we'll peg that initially directly straight out, just to keep that looking quite nice and taut. So from here, the final thing we need to do is peg that front section out. Overall, we're looking quite sharp. If anything, probably need to lift it up a little bit in the middle, just to kind of get that sort of general slope. So you might be able to just about see that the middle point is in there. So you won't go internally and push it up over the top, or by playing with it the other side and get a little bit more tension on it. We can get a little bit more play on that. Now we'll peg this directly out, so we're kind of square very much where the poles are shaped, but then it kind of comes in a little bit. There's a webbing strap located on the front section. You want to kind of get this nice and square. So this is one of the things that you might have to play with a little bit with the door section, making sure there's enough sort of tension on that door section. There's always a little bit of fine tuning required, but that, to be fair, looks okay. Don't mind that at all. Those will need to peg internally. And then we'll just guide it out additionally. So For more information, you can always check the link below this video. It'll take you through to a range of kind of the front canopies you can get. And we've kind of got a little bit of a matrix located there, which kind of shows you kind of each model and kind of what it's designed to go for. So you can always use that as a bit of a kind of a reference guide. Let's bring this back around to the side. Now we've finished done with it. And then peg the one on the front. For me, it's to a certain extent, there's no reason why you couldn't use the same kind of Outwell version on different brands. The crucial thing really is trying to find something that's going to be a similar sort of shape and size tent and kind of running on the basis of that. It's not going to be as perfectly fitting as you'll expect with kind of the Outwell models, but it would be another alternative. In saying that, I know Camper do have kind of like a generalized universal canopy that you can also check out if you want something of more that kind of ilk. Admittedly, the Outwell ones, as you'd imagine, work better with their own brand tents, but it's quite a simple concept that gives you a lot more flexibility, the ability to obviously enclose a front section quite happily and make that kind of more modular design as previously mentioned. Put one more guy rope and then we're done. Perfect. So jobs are good. So looking really smart. We've got a full front door into that as well. There's actually a full mesh door located behind that. So what you find is that you can have that sort of bug-free barrier right at the front of the tent. And especially if you haven't got that on the tent itself, it's a really nice little addition. You've also got a door section which kind of rolls from right to left. So you can open it all even from left to right on that front section. And actually on the opposite side, there is a kind of a door built into the actual awning section. But we can check out our kind of, we've done a little video review on the universal kind of awning and kind of talk a bit more in depth about that in terms of spec, features, but that's more of a pitching video kind of side of things. But yeah, for more information, by all means, check the link below. Let us know of what you think as well in terms of what you think is a great option, whether it thinks it's going to work for your tent. It's always good to have feedback from you guys. But that's kind of my little video on the Outwell universal awning.